Hey guys, Chris here. Tonight we are in the Sierra Nevada and we're going to be camping, cooking, and we have a story from one of our viewers who goes to a cabin in upstate New York with his girlfriend, and there this cabin turns into a house of horrors for them. That's next. Okay, so today's sponsor is Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app to help you manage your money better. I've been using Rocket Money lately to help me budget plan, as well as with smart savings to save for future goals, as well as one of the coolest things is it has in the app a way to manage your online subscriptions. It already has them categorized as reoccurring payments. You simply click on it and you can see how much you've been paying over the months. As well as if you want to cancel the subscription, you simply click on it and cancel it and it's gone. You don't have to call them and be on hold or log in and search and try to find out how to cancel it. It's great, and I've done this and it's helped me save money. So if that is of interest to you, visit rocketmoney.com or click the link in the description below and get a hold of your finances with Rocket Money. Yeah, really nice place to pitch the tent, nice and level right here, and we have a nice deep fire pit. I might have to dig some of that garbage out of there, but it's all good. Set her up. Okay guys, here is our setup for the night. I have the REI Co-op Arete ASL2, and that is a two-man tent, two-person tent, and the ASL is all season long. We start out with the Thermarest pad, then we have the Rugged Camp sleep pad here, inflatable sleep pad with the Kelty Cosmic Down 20 down sleeping bag, and that is a good one. And then we have the Hikinger ultralight pillow for my comfort tonight, so that will work for me and keep me off the ground somewhat and comfortable. It's going to be pretty warm tonight, and so I'm going to be just fine. Okay, so there's a pretty good wind up where the tent is, so I'm going to drop down into these trees and see if I can get out of the wind. Do our story. Okay, so I found a nice spot to get out of the wind, and we're gonna be okay here, I think. Tonight's beer, we've had this one before, from the Big Sky Brewing Company out of Montana. We have Moose Drool Brown Ale, and that is a good one. We've had it in the bottle and the can, and apparently they make water fun. That is the logo from Charlie Russell, the Western cowboy artist. Well, he had a buffalo skull and he always put on his paintings. Great artist out of Montana, Great Falls. So, oh, that is a good brown ale. Put that in the brown tin cup. Should be a good combo. Oh, nice and rich that is. There we go. I'm going to taste it out of the can here. Nice and cold. I put it in the cooler on the way up. It's got a really malty and almost a mocha kind of finish to it. It's really pleasant, and definitely a beer, strong beer kind of flavor to it, but real tasty. So our story comes to us from Rob. He sent me an email recently, and he said he hasn't talked about this really since it happened. And he said his girlfriend doesn't like to talk about it as well. And so he saw my videos and he felt this would be a good time to talk to somebody about this and bring his story to light. In 2010, Rob, who grew up in Brooklyn, New York, he and his family would regularly take trips to upstate New York. do camping and hiking and nature, and he felt very comfortable in nature and being outdoors, and he loved this area. So in 2010, that fall, he and his girlfriend went up to Stanfordville, very small town, fairly unpopulated area, and he was going to stay in this cabin. And this area is pristine forests, lakes, rivers, and just really beautiful country. And he found this cabin that was on 35 acres. He said it felt like he was almost on a game preserve or a state park, because it was just the 35 acres and land beyond that. It was pretty unpopulated area. So this cabin was outside of town, and the owner lived about 5 miles away. They pull up, they're driving on this long driveway to get in there, 35 acres, and they can see the cabin, and they see the back of the cabin first because the front of the cabin is facing this picturesque lake. Deciduous and conifer trees around it, and pretty good sized lake. There was even an island on it. They were pretty excited. They got out of the car, opened up the cabin, checking it out, and then he remembered the owner said, on the back porch there's a fridge, and I put some ice cream and some soda pop in there. And I'm from Minnesota, we just call it pop. And some other things. And he was, oh, I'm gonna go check that out. So he goes around the back, goes up the stairs, opens this fridge, and this fridge looked like it was ransacked. The ice cream was gone. There was wrappers like torn up and kind of thrown around in there. 2 cans of pop were still there, but there was nothing else in there. One of the cans of pop was laying down. And he thought, did some kids break into this and steal this, or was there a prank or something? He just didn't know what to think. I mean, this cabin is deep in this forest, and he didn't see any kids when he drove through Stanfordville to get to the cabin, so he didn't know what to think of it. He was a little disappointed though. And so they kind of moved on, and now they're exploring around the little area there, and then they went down to the lake and were checking that out, and they saw a deer and beautiful lake, and they saw fish swimming in the lake, and then they found the rowboat that they could use, and they got into the rowboat, paddled across the lake, checking out this lake, and there was this big hill on the other side of the lake, and they decided to get out and hike the 500-600 feet up to this kind of this ridge hill. And kind of near the top there was a pet cemetery. He said it was a little strange. It just felt a little weird to see a pet cemetery. And he mentioned there was, and I don't know how he knew this, but maybe there was pictures or names or something, but he said there was several dogs, a couple of rabbits, and a horse. And just felt a little odd. It wasn't crazy or anything, but they had these beautiful views of this lake and this area, and it just felt so peaceful. And they decided to wrap it up and let's head back down and go into town and get some groceries, and then come back and start our little weekend. Okay, so I got the lights on, and the sun is pretty much gone, so a little spooky kind of feel to it right now. And I'm hearing like a chipmunk or something, some kind of an animal making noise over here, so it's all good though. So they wrapped up their day and they came back to this cabin. They opened the door and they were startled because there was a bat flying around in this cabin. It just, that was a little strange, but not totally unusual for, you know, the forest and a cabin. And Rob opens up the door and they chase the bat out, and it was all good, but they were having this peaceful day, and it just startled them. And then they went down to the lake and they saw more bats, so it made more sense to them that Yeah, this is what bats do at this time of night. They're flying around, and when they're in the cabin or in a structure like that, they fly like crazy, right? And then you don't know where they're gonna go, and it's a little freaky because it looks like they're gonna, you know, smack you in the face or get in your hair or something, you know. So they're like, okay, it's all good. They wrap up their night, they get into bed, say goodnight, and turn the lights out. 20 minutes later, they hear on this roof, it sounds like a pebble hits the peak and rolls down. And this roof has this like fitted copper sheets, like copper shingles almost. And right away it catches Rob's attention, and then he hears another, and then more, and then there's like handfuls hitting this peak and then rolling down, like cascading down. And he sits up and he says to his girlfriend, "Are you hearing this?" She says, "Yes. What is it?" He says, "I really don't know. Maybe it's a squirrel, maybe it's an animal, chipmunk or something." But he knew that squirrels and chipmunks are pretty much done for the day once the sun goes down and they're in their nest or whatever. It just didn't make any sense. This went on for another 15 minutes. Handfuls of rocks, cascading down, and then it stopped. And they fell asleep about an hour later, and then he woke and he said it was pitch black, and he wasn't used to that because he was expecting the sun to come through the window. And he remembered the owner said, "Be sure to close the shutters before you go to bed." And it turned out there were shutters on the outside and the inside of this cabin. And he thought that was really odd. And he thought, well, it's, you know, they do get snow up here. Maybe it's to keep the cold out, and when the snow piles up and it helps with that. I don't know. I don't know what to think. So they started their day. It was very similar to the day before. They decided to do some exploring. They took the boat out again, went across the lake, really enjoyed the peace and the beauty of it. And then they went back to this large hill. They hiked up, and they saw a deer, heard some other wildlife, and they even heard some turkeys. And he said that they couldn't find the turkeys, but they could hear them, and they even found turkey feathers. And they went to this hilltop, and there was a bench up there, and as soon as they sat down, just a few minutes later, it got really quiet, eerily quiet. There was no animal sounds, birds, crickets. I'm hearing crickets right now, so and it just felt really strange. Nothing over the top. They didn't hear anything else, or, you know, no movement in the brush or anything. And they decided to head back down the hill, get in the boat, go across. They made some dinner, and they had this old DVD player, and they were watching an old movie, sitting on the couch, just relaxing, having a nice time, and starting to fall asleep. It was getting late. And then, on the back of the cabin, they hear this loud bang, really loud, like it echoed through the cabin. And he sat up, and they were both, you know, wide-eyed and alert and in the moment, like, what was that? And again, his girlfriend said, "Any idea what that was? What was that?" And she said, "Was that like a raccoon or something messing around?" And he said, "I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think that was a raccoon. I don't know." But it was really loud. And so they were sitting there at like full attention, listening for what might come next. He said the sound sounded like it came from higher up, like above where these shutters were. And he said these shutters were like 8.5 feet tall at the top. So whatever this was, it hit the cabin like a giant slap above that. His girlfriend was really frightened at this point. He was really starting to freak out. And so he said he got up and he went into the kitchen to find something, anything for protection. They didn't have a gun. And he thought, okay, I'll get a big knife, I'll get a rolling pin, a big wooden cutting board, anything to just have something in my hand. Because they could just feel this fear coming over them. As he's walking into this kitchen, kind of a small kitchen, there was a small window above the sink. The moment he walked by it, heading this way, he saw this large shadow head in the opposite direction. A large shadow. He said it was, he could see shoulders and a head in the shadow just pass by silently. Just totally startled him. He said he knew it wasn't a bear. It was no way that was a bear. And he said this window was, again, like 8 feet above the ground, and there was a foundation below this cabin, like a 3.5 foot deep crawl space where there was a water pump and some storage. And he said there was a chain link fence around it, so whatever this was didn't come out from under there. And his mind was just going crazy, like, oh my gosh. And he said he's always been a skeptic, but he knew that this for sure was a Bigfoot because he saw the large shoulders in this head and how it moved, very human-like movements. He goes back into the bedroom. He's got a skillet, this big iron skillet. And I brought my little skillet. And he's holding, and he feels kind of stupid because he's just got something, but it's better than nothing. And they're sitting there just kind of hoping this thing just passes. And then again, they hear this thunderous pound, slap on the side of the cabin, on the different side now. Totally startles them. They both jump, and they can hear this thing now walking around the cabin. There's gravel all the way around the base of this cabin, and they can hear the gravel like crunching. As it's walking, at random intervals, it slaps a different side of the cabin, and the cabin shakes. And it shook so hard at one point that a picture fell off the wall, a photograph with a framed picture in it, landed on the floor, and they could see on the fireplace mantle the knickknacks like wobbling. And this thing continues walking around and slapping, and it's going faster and faster and just working its way around the cabin. They were petrified, not sure what this thing wanted, what it was going to do, what was going to happen next. Then Rob said the most frightening thing that happened, they're listening and hearing these slaps, and then they hear it come up to the back porch. They can hear it walk on the porch. They're sitting there just waiting and listening, and then they could hear the doorknob turning back and forth like this, slowly, and then shake. And they were just petrified, just sitting there, not sure if this thing's going to come busting through the door at any second. And then you can hear this thing like breathing, and it's got this like raspy kind of grunting, like an old man having a hard time breathing or something. Just this kind of this horrible kind of breathing. And they heard movement out on the deck, and then he remembered the refrigerator with the ice cream and the snacks in it and what happened to that. And he thought, this Bigfoot came back to eat, to have a meal. And they're just beside themselves, just wishing this thing would go away. And then they hear it going around the cabin, walking some more. One more loud slap, and then they can hear it quietly walking away towards the back of the cabin. It got quieter and quieter. And they just let out a breath because they were like almost like holding their breath listening to this thing. They just saw that glimpse of it out the window, and the rest was just sounds that they were hearing. While this was going on, Rob thought about calling the police or the owner, and he thought by the time the police get here, it's going to be too late. Thought it was like 30-minute drive for the police, and the owner was just this older woman, didn't know what she was going to do, so they just rode this thing out. They stayed up most of the rest of the night. Just before dawn, they kind of crashed out. They were exhausted. Woke up the next morning, packed everything up, and really left as quickly as possible. Rob said his girlfriend does not like talking about this. She's not sure what to even believe, if this is Bigfoot or not. She just doesn't even know what to believe. And she is fearful of ridicule and people just, you know, making fun of her or doubting her. And so she's just really doesn't want to deal with it. And so Rob said for him, this was the first time he's really acknowledged it to another person outside of his girlfriend. And they obviously went through this experience together. And he said it's been helpful, but he just didn't want to talk about it either. And since then, he's been watching a lot of all my videos, or many of my videos, and others, and reading books, and he's just really got a fascination with this subject. And because of his experience that happened in autumn of 2010 in upstate New York. And that is our story for tonight. And it is pitch black here. I gotta hike up this hill here, get back to the tent, and I gotta make some dinner. So, all right, we'll see you back at the tent. Okay, so for tonight, we are having a bison burger on a pretzel bun with lettuce, tomato, and some cheese and pickle. So we are loading up pretty nice, and a little ketchup. So pretty simple, but this is gonna be real pleasant. Gonna do some extra virgin olive oil on my little iron skillet here. It's a sweet little skillet I got. And that's going to heat up really fast. So. All right, there we go. Pretzel bun burger. All right, time to eat. What's nice about a burger is you don't have to have utensils. Just need your hands. When I was a kid, I thought they were called hamburgers because you ate it with your hands. Because there's no ham involved, at least that I can see. I really like the pretzel burger. The pretzel bun on the burger. Okay, you guys, I am snug as a bug in a rug in my tent here, and I like having the two-man tent. It gives me that extra space I like to have, and excellent headroom in this tent, and a super sturdy tent. So I'm going to show you just a few things that I have for security while I'm solo camping. I don't always bring this backpacking because a couple of things are kind of heavy, and but for the most part, this is what I usually bring with me. This is called the storm whistle, and that, it gets really loud. And I am not going to blow that, but you can hear this up to a mile away. And these can be found on Amazon if you're interested. I'm not selling them or anything, but this is the storm whistle, and this has helped me a couple of times. I had a bobcat circling my tent, and also I had some strange sounds and some things surrounding me, and I did a video on that, so my guys might want to check that out. But that is my storm whistle, and I'll just wear it around camp or just have it right next to me, and it's very helpful. I usually always bring up little lock blade pocket knife. Got a few of these. I have my Spot X, and this has got some GPS capabilities, as well as I can communicate off grid. So no matter where I am, I can still send messages with this, text messages to. And it also has an SOS right here that you can, right where my thumb is, but there's an SOS that will flip open, and I have the insurance to be helicoptered out if need be. And it's got a little cover on it so you can't accidentally bump into it. That would be the worst thing, because when you're backpacking and camping, these things are constantly being shoved all over the place. I also have my cell phone and a way to charge it. Keeps track of time as well as other things, and occasionally you'd be surprised where you can get reception. Also, I have, for protection, my handgun. It is a GP 100 Ruger 357. It takes 38 special cartridges as well, and this is a very powerful handgun. I took the bullets out, but that is something I bring with for protection if necessary. And I have a locked box for it, and that is usually hidden in the truck somewhere. And then obviously various lights and lots of water containers. So that's what I use, and I don't always bring this backpacking because it is a very heavy gun. So also, I am not having a campfire tonight. We've had fires in Northern California and smoke, and I do not want to have anything go wrong, so I'm just gonna bypass on the campfire tonight. So I'm hearing crickets, and they're all around me. It's pretty interesting, and it's August, so it's that time of year. So when the crickets stop, that's a different matter. So I'm actually enjoying the crickets. But I actually have another story for you guys. This is not from one of our viewers. This is a story that I found and heard about. And this takes place in this area south of Lake Tahoe, and then a little bit west, outside of the Desolation Wilderness. Just a beautiful place that is. And this young man in, I believe it was 2009, his name was Jeff, he had a Toyota Tacoma, he had his dog in there with him, and he was head down Highway 50, and then he went off Highway 50 on one of these dirt roads. He was heading to a lake, wanted to do a little fishing. And as he's heading up this mountain, he wasn't quite sure where to go. He had an idea, but at night, everything's just more complicated. It's just harder. And it got darker a lot quicker than he thought. And sometimes you're in the mountains, it's just the area that you're in, if it's on the east side or the wrong side of the mountain, and the sun just can't even get to it, it gets dark really early. And then when the sun really starts dropping, it's pitch black. So he thought, okay, I'm just going to pull over on the side of this dirt road, this Forest Service road, and just do a quick dry camp for the night and get up next morning and head on up and do my fishing and have a good time. So he pulls over, and there's a spot. It's pretty thick trees, and he pulls in there, and the trees kind of wrap around him a little bit, and he kind of liked it because it felt secluded. And he had his dog with him, so he let the dog out. Dog ran around, and he had a quick bite to eat out of his food box. And then he thought what he was going to do was just take his sleeping bag and his pad and just roll it out in the ground next to his truck. Like literally right next to the truck, just almost part way under it, just right there, just next to the truck, close to his gear and his, he could take off if he needed to or whatever, but just didn't want to make a big camp or anything. And he's falls asleep, and about 2 hours later, he hears on this dirt road somebody or something walking up the road. It's a little ways away, and he can hear footsteps coming up this road. And he's thinking to himself, I wonder if that's a hiker. He's just a backpacker. He's coming in late, and he just wanted to keep going. And he's laying there. He's listening to this. It's getting closer. And he found it interesting. His dog didn't bark or do anything. His dog just sat there motionless and quiet. This was uncharacteristic of his dog. His dog would normally, at the very least, the dog would, you know, dogs almost can't contain themselves sometimes. But his dog was absolutely quiet, dead silent. And he's hearing these steps getting closer and closer, and then he thought just for a moment, maybe I should yell out and go, hey, I'm over here, you know, in case it's another hiker. And then he thought, but if it's not, I'm giving myself away. He's laying there, he's outside, just next to his truck. And this thing gets closer and closer, and then it's right on the road where he pulled in 4, maybe 5 feet away, and the footsteps stop. Stop right there. And now he's really concerned because he feels really vulnerable, like, oh my gosh, this is really frightening. Whoever this was is now standing right there in the dark. He couldn't see them. And he's laying there, his dog's not doing a thing. And then, whatever this thing was, he could hear this breathing, this light breathing in and out, just and then he hears some movement of the feet on the dirt just feet away. And then there's this really extremely loud scream, this shrieking, almost a howl to it. Super loud. He could feel it inside his body. It was just like shook him. He was just right next to it. And then whatever this thing was took off running up the road, still screaming. And he could hear the footsteps, 2 steps, bipedal, running up this road and still screaming. And then it got fainter and fainter, the footsteps, and the screams became less and less, and then it just kind of faded out. And it was gone. And he's laying there in his sleeping bag, just petrified, like he couldn't even move. And he's just outside of his mind of what that was, and it felt like it had to be a Bigfoot. And he found the strength to just roll over and get out of his bag, and he just threw it in the back of the pickup truck and the pad, opened up the passenger, let the dog jump in. The dog came right in, and he ran around the side, fired up the truck, pulled out and took a left and went down the mountain to get out of there. And he said that was the most frightening experience he ever had in his life. That is our second story. But I could relate to that, camping in a tent. But I'm okay. I'll be fine. So I got my tools. All right, you guys. Well, I better get some sleep. I got a good book I'm going to be reading, the Sierra North hiking guide here. I might read a few pages of that. And then I'm going to get up and get some coffee going and see what else I can get going. So, all right, we'll see you guys in the morning. Hey, good morning, you guys. I slept really good. The wind finally stopped. And it was really quiet last night. Didn't hear anything crazy, so that's good. I did hear a howl up this way about an hour ago. Sounded like a coyote. And I've been hearing mourning doves, blue jays, and there was even a woodpecker in one of these trees just a few minutes ago. So, all right. There we go. Time to get some coffee. All right. As part of waking up, this is not Folgers. It's from the grocery outlet. It's coffee though. All right, I do like camp coffee. Good way to wake up. All right, well, I have a road trip today. I'm heading up to Wyoming. I'm going to a memorial for my friend who passed away last spring, April. I did a video on that, if you guys remember that, but that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to be on the road, heading to Wyoming, then up to Montana. So, but we got more stories coming and more camping to do, and gonna have more adventures. So, all right, you guys, we'll talk to you soon, and thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. As always, keep hiking.